Okay. Can everyone hear me? Hello? Okay. Okay, so that's the URL of my YouTube streaming. I hope they're not going to remove it. I think last time, just like uh, so in the last class, I tried to stream it. For some reason, it flagged as inappropriate and removed it without even continuing the streaming. I'm not sure why. Uh, so I have to re-record that one. Okay. So let's start off with the syllabus. You can find the syllabus on the OneDrive. And also the link is provided on Blackboard. You can find it here. Syllabus link is also here. If you have questions, just unmute your mic and you can ask me any questions or put in the chat log. Yeah, you prefer to type it. It's actually being recorded right now. Right now, I am actually so this time I'm being a little bit safe, but so right now I'm actually recording my session from the OBS, the one that I think everyone uses, OBS Studio, and it's also streaming to YouTube just in case YouTube messed up again. And I'm recording, and also I could record on Zoom as well. This computer is actually fast enough, but I can't guarantee about next week because my computer is actually quite slow. So I don't know if I can do it that way. Let's see more. Okay, let's record as well. Record on the computer. Okay, so if you haven't heard about, I'm sure you did. Like the Harris County has ordered everyone to stay at home starting from tonight at midnight. And of course, if you're caught, you will get fined. Yeah, Galveston. So if you're caught, you probably will get fined. And I think this will be effective until next Friday, which means that I have to stay at home. Like right now, if you look around this area, it's actually my office. And right now I can use it because it hasn't reached midnight, but my computer at home isn't as fast as this, so I can't do like all this recording at the same time. I can probably just record one thing at a time. Okay, so basically we just want to stay safe, and of course there's actually one of the for the other class I'm teaching right now, 330305, I asked them uh, to create an Excel worksheet based on the novel coronavirus. Are you able to see the YouTube or no? Okay, just look at the YouTube. If it stops recording, let me know, and I'll try to figure out something else. Okay, so you can see the coronavirus here, right? So you can see. Okay, YouTube is all good. Okay, and then you can see that where is it? The USA. You can see the trend of the USA that actually hasn't decreased, and you can see that it's still going linearly, and especially like yesterday, it has a huge increase yesterday. Um, so it's still increasing like linearly. So that's not what we wanted. We wanted like something like maybe it should go down like 80% from the previous daily change. So right now it's still going exponentially. That's why everyone is ordered to stay at home. Okay, let's go back here. The office hours will be changed. Obviously, because we're no longer allowed to meet each other in person. So a few ways that we can communicate. One way is through emails, the traditional way, emails. Um, but I have Zoom installed on my phone, which means that you can send me a chat request, or even a video conferencing with me, sharing your desktop with me, um, so that I can help you with your problem. Okay. So none of the grading criteria will change. I'm not planning to change any of these grading criteria. We still have assignments that worth 20%, participations and quizzes that are worth 20%. We still have the test load. We did the first test that will be either 15% or 25%. Then we have a second test that's going to be worth some points. Then finally we have the final exam that's worth a little bit less, more or less. Then that gives us the total score. So I've modified our tutorial, like for level 2 tutorials, we have tutorial 3.1 and 3.2, as well as positioning. I did talk about positioning, the CSS level 2 positioning with z-index. I mentioned about z-index as well, but I think you should review as well. This one is going to be part of 3.3. Stuff like clipping and other areas in part 3.3 are deemed unimportant, and therefore I'm not going to cover it. So everything here refers to the to test 2. Then we have tutorials 4.1 and 4.2 that we'll be covering. 4.3 is omitted. Today we will be working on CSS Flexbox. That's part of tutorial 5.2. as well as a handout that has already been uploaded in OneDrive. Next week, we will be continuing with tutorial 5.1 and combining with some kind of review for test 2. And then week oh, this is actually this week 10 typo. Week 10 will be tutorial 6. I think everyone should know at least the tables and the forms. That's why I'm not omitting any of these chapters. But I am dropping some of the contents from like 5.3. 5.3 is just printing your document, your web page on the printer, and how you're going to use the CSS to style um, your web page on the printer. And of course, who uses a printer? So I figure that's not really that too a significant importance right now. Of course, 6 and 7 are important. And then we have the final exam that covers about 6 and 7. We may cover like a little bit on the Flexbox as well. So there are maybe some stuff on it, but we are the main focus will be tables and forms. Test 2. So test 2, unfortunately, we cannot have like I cannot make this proctored, and I would rather not use ProctorU, even though ProctorU is offered for free for students in the UHCL. Like UHCL will compensate for your payment of ProctorU, so we'll reimburse your payment. But there's a lot of problems with ProctorU. I've been teaching 3303 online for a couple of years, and every semester or even every test, I always encounter like 1 or 2 problems with ProctorU, and therefore I have decided to give this as a take-home exam, take-home test. However, the difference is that I'm not going to make this test. I'm not going to make this test like a few days. So you're not going to have a few days to complete. In fact, you're only going to have maybe about 6 hours to complete this test, which means that I'll be assigning you the test starting from yeah, I can start from 1 o'clock and then collect it at around 7 o'clock, if that's a problem with you. So I can do from 1 o'clock to 7 o'clock, unless you have other classes before 1 o'clock, like at 1 o'clock. Finn, Wayne? Okay, so I think we have everyone here. Not everyone. We have like 15, 14, so we're missing a few people here. So again, test 2 will be take-home test during our class times. So I may give you like maybe 7 hours, just in case that you need more time. So, but it will be between like let's say from 2 o'clock to maybe 8 o'clock. Let's do it that way. 2 o'clock to 8 o'clock, 6 hours. Yeah, so we can do it from 2 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Final exam will most likely be face to face. I'm not planning to give. I don't want to give take home, and I'm hoping that situation will clear up, and by that time everyone is allowed to meet each other, and we can have a final exam face to face on May 5th. So test 2 is the only exception that will be take home, and the grades will be the same. If you did much better in test 2, you will get it will worth a little bit more than test 1. Any questions? From what I can see, are we going to have less material to cover for the final? Yeah. The final exam is not gonna. I'm not changing the amount of materials to be covered for final exam because these tests are not designed to be cumulative. Because the problem with cumulative exam is that the amount of problems will be vast, which means that you're not gonna have like 3 hours of time is not gonna be enough for you to complete any of the problems. So they're not going to be cumulative, and the only one that we're omitting is 5.3. If you look at the original schedule, good thing I saved it. Let's see, classes 5430. 5430, and where is it? Schedule. No, not 50. Sorry, keep on looking at the wrong one. 4331, and this one. Okay. So if you look at the original schedule, we did actually have a little bit more practice on on tutorial 5, but things are going to change because we're going to omit some stuff from 5, and then this week we will be basically combining with the previous week, so that it's going to be just 1 week. And then for tutorial 6, so for tutorial 6, we may we focus more on the tables, and then maybe a little bit less on 6.3, the last section. The same thing goes for tutorial 7. We focus more on 7.1, 7.2, and less on 7.3. I work for sanitation today. Um, so what do you mean by workload? Like you have to go there to clean up stuff? Yeah, if you have any other questions, if you want uh,
Hello, can you hear me?
yeah.
Okay, so pretty much what's happening is that I work for waste management, and I have to deal with like non-haz and hazardous materials.
Hmm.
So in the forefront, I'm getting added more hours due to the fact that a lot of my coworkers are in the what they call the risk of the corona. You know, the 65 older and long term. So it's switching up my schedule.
Oh,
Usually when I have that window normally set out, but being it since we're in this situation,
so right now you're working during like this time or what?
yes, yeah, usually I will be. I didn't work today, but I will start soon. I got my document from the uh,
Hmm,
the company
interesting.
pretty much, so I can go to and from off Harris County, without any law enforcement issues. But so it's a little unpredictable for me right now.
Oh
So
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Well, I guess in that case I'll figure something out to accommodate everyone in the class.
Yeah, well, I'll let you know as I go, but I just
Yeah,
wanted to.
yeah, sure. That's fine. Yeah, let me know.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Okay. So let's open the PowerPoint from the OneDrive. You can find OneDrive in the folder. PowerPoint. Let's take a PowerPoint here, and we're gonna look at chapter 5. We're gonna skip 5.1 for now because I think 5 point and I haven't like come up with an assignment. I'll be updating your assignment maybe by tomorrow, so that you have something to work on, something to practice on the Flexbox. Okay, let's see. Tablet designs, desktop designs. Hold on. Okay. We can also let's actually look at the other document which I've uploaded a while ago. So go to resources on the OneDrive share folder, and then there's a Flexbox tutorial here. You can actually refer to this tutorial, and I'll be looking over some of the examples here and then try to explain how everything fits in. Let me just open up the tutorial on my. Uh, Okay, so just open up this tutorial and we can actually look over this tutorial as well. Some examples we will be working on, but uh, but but I'll be modifying as we go along. Come on. What is it? Shared files. Okay, classes. 4331. ISAM 43, and then resources. Flexbox tutorial. Okay. Okay, this is actually a good one. By the way, this one you can find it for free on the website, but I just paid for I think $10 for this PDF because it looks a lot nicer than what I can collect from the website. And I distributed this one. It's actually a pretty good tutorial. It's much better than the one in the textbook from chapter 5.2. So let me read this one. CSS, Cascading Style Sheets. CSS is a simple design language intended to simplify the process of making web page presentable. CSS handles the look and feel part of a web page, whereas the HTML handles the content of a web page. So using a CSS, you can control the color of the text, the style of the fonts, the spacing between paragraphs, how columns are sized and layout, what background images or colors are used, layout designs, variations in display for different devices and screen sizes, as well as a variety of other effects. Dimensions. Okay, so we have a few different layouts. We talk about the block layout or PowerPoint tutorial. For PowerPoint tutorial. So PowerPoint tutorial, you can find it in the so in the PowerPoint, there are only a few pictures I'm going to use. I'm not going to use the PowerPoint tutorial that much, uh, but I think it's best to have some pictures in front of you so that you understand where I'm going to. So you can click on this one, or this. It's a little bit slow. And you can find the PowerPoints here. and you can find it's going to be tutorial number 5. So you click on this and it will open up the tutorial just like what this one shows. Okay, Flexbox. Okay, so we have the block layout. So what's a block layout? Okay, let me open Visual Studio. Okay, so let me just create a new project. And the easiest one will be ASP.NET Web Application, this one. And I'll be creating this project. It's called ISAM 4331 SP20 class 8 or class 9. I don't remember which one. Create. Empty. So let's uncheck the HTTPS, and we are going to create an empty ASP.NET. Actually, you know what? I want to create a core. We open it. Visual Studio 8. Okay, so let me try this again. Create a new project. It's ASP.NET. And we're actually creating the .NET framework, not the other one, because the other one we need to configure a little bit more. So ISAM 4331 SP20, and then class, let's say 0908. Great. Okay, let's get rid of this thing. Empty and then create. Okay, well, it's opening. Let's look at other stuff. So we have inline layout, table layout, position layout. So let's look at a block layout. Sorry, I actually have 3 monitors. One is on the projector. So I will add new, the heck, new item. And we are adding an HTML page. Let's call it HTML page 1. That's fine. So maybe this will be a little bit of a quick review. Let's add a CSS file, style sheet, CSS. I don't want to I don't know if I'm doing too fast, because sometimes I have, since I have done this quite a bit, and sometimes I thought I'm not doing too fast, and students think that I'm doing a bit too fast. I just want to make sure that everyone is able to keep up, even though I may be uploading it. It might make sense to watch this only once instead of 2 times. Okay, and please ask questions if you have questions. Okay, so I'm going to move this into style sheet 1 here, and the body will contain. Okay, let's create block elements. So to create block elements, we're gonna create like actually, you know what? Let's do the stuff that we have been doing before. Let's do a site, and then maybe we have some articles here, and then maybe we have let's say a site again, ID equals to right, and then let's say ID equals to left, and then maybe we have some articles inside here. In fact, let's put a main section here. So this is left aside or left spam, and then right spam, and then more spam. Okay, so I just created a nice web page that basically spam everyone. Okay, so let's we can actually open this one. So if you run it, we're not going to see much. We're going to see left, more, right on separate lines. Where is it? Okay, it's taking a while. Okay, so let me just write down my URL, HTML page 1.html. Okay, so you can see like we have left spam, more spam, and right spam. Now let's make this into like different sizes. So let's say our sides are both let's say 20%. So we're gonna make sure that the width is 20%, and let's say the main is gonna be so 20 plus 20, that's 40%. Then width is gonna be 60%. And to make it look a little bit better, oh, am I sharing the screen? Oh, you want to share the screen or Oh no, I'm actually doing the YouTube because sharing the screen has some problems. Like sometimes it will be hard for you to follow. Like I'm actually doing the YouTube here. Yeah, I think Vin actually came here late, so I'm not sure if he actually saw my YouTube link. Okay, so you can look at the aside and then main. Okay, and then let's also add a height, right? We always want to add a height here. That's how these examples work. We always have to have some kind of height. Let's fix it to 200 pixels, and this one is gonna be and let's add some color. Um, yeah, yellow. And then we're changing some color for left. Background color L, what's it called? L color. I state gray, whatever color. You don't have to follow my the same color as I have written. C Corel. Okay, so so basically what I did here is that I just basically specify some different colors. Okay, so now they have all different colors, right? But in order to make them on the same page, in order to make this on the same page, we have to like use the floats, right? So now let's specify our float here, right? So we're gonna float everything to the left. Okay, I'm gonna pause a little bit and then just talk a little bit. So when you refresh it, everything goes on the same line. So this is known as a block layout. Let me just make this smaller since I'm not projecting anything on the screen. 70% close. We don't need this one. We don't need this one. We don't even need this thing. Yeah, 100% is fine. So far we have all we're doing here is to show you how you can lay out your web page using blocks. So on the block, we can specify however you like to put your layout here. Now the other way that we can do is to use something called an inline layout. Let's see how that works. Okay, let me just create a new file, or actually on the same file, right? So let me just trying to figure out. Let's do div id equals to inline, right? This is going to be an id. And inside here, we're going to do the same thing, left span, right span, and more span, right? Okay, we're going to do the same thing, but the difference is that I want to make sure that everything here is going to be the inline, right? So let's actually change this to span. And this is going to be span id equals to main. And span. When you have a span, it's going to be an inline block, inline element, right? So if you look at the inline, right? The inline element, on the other hand, is why is it not colored? Okay, let me just put a HR here. Okay, for some reason, more span and the right span. Okay, so yeah, so basically I have left float, right? Okay. Let me just add another div ID here. It's probably make more sense. Block, right? So I'm just gonna put ID here so that it won't overlap with my inline. So here I'm gonna change this to a block. Just add a block before the aside, and also add the block before the main, before the left and right. Okay. Okay, so now I have left more span, right span. Okay. So now I'm going to add the inline, and then selecting the let's say the left part, right? The left part, I just want a different color, a background color, let's say red, and then doing the same thing for the main, and then the same thing for the right. So this is going to be red, green, and blue. Just make it simple. So now if you look at the design, you can see that everything is still lined up on the same space, right, on the same place. The only problem with this inline is that if this extends too far, it's not, you cannot change, like for an inline style, you cannot change the size of an inline style. So the way that we fix it is to force each inline element as the inline block. So when we have let's say we have inline block, Then with an inline block, we can change the width and height of an element because an inline element does not have like the size. So we're gonna force everything to be in the inline block. The left and right are gonna have the same style, whereas the main will use the main style, which is 60%. So this is an example of an inline style. So as you can see, all of them are similar except we have some spaces here, right? The reason is that span is actually an inline element. The spaces come strictly because of the space here. Everything here will be treated as one space. So in order to prevent that problem, we're just simply going to remove the spaces between the spans. So here we have a similar kind of design. So the first one is a block design. Second one is an inline design, inline layout. Is everyone following?
Oh, Professor, can you hear me?
Yeah,
You're going kind of fast.
I am.
Yeah, yeah. I got
So which part are you lost?
a little bit higher on the CSS.
Block?
Yeah, I
Yes.
think.
Yeah. So the reason is that I wanted to I wanted to put everything on the same page, and I realized that the styles for the aside, main, and aside may overlap with any of this stuff. So that's why I inserted a block, and I just simply add the block here. So what this one tells me is that I want to make sure that all my aside elements within the block element is going to have a width of 20% across the screen and the height of 200 pixels. The main element under the hashtag block is having a width of 60%, height of 200 pixels. This one uses a color of yellow, and we're going to float this to a left. Likewise, the left and right are both going to receive this different colors, and float it to the left. So that's where the block layout comes in. So the purpose of this exercise is to show you the difference between the block layout and inline layout. The inline layout means that you're putting all the elements as an inline, and they're going to be lined up next to each other, which means that you do not need to float. Now, the problem is that here the spaces are actually going to be treated as a text. That, as you can see, if I leave a space here, right? If I have a space here, you're going to see a space between the elements, between the design on the page. So in order to prevent that, we cannot have any spaces here. And here we define a div element with an ID of inline, and inside this div element we have three elements, all spans. So here we're gonna put like background color red, green, and blue. Height and width are defined for all of them, but if you leave this line out, you cannot change the width and height of every of the inline elements. So that's the problem with an inline element. An inline element does not define the height and width. You cannot customize the width and height, whereas a block element you can. So an inline block means that you're combining the feature from the inline element as well as a block element. That's why I'm forcing everything to be having a display of inline block. Is everyone following? Let me know if you feel good about me continuing to the next layout. Hello? Can you just
Oh, I'm still copying. I don't know about everyone else. I'm writing down the CSS right now.
Oh,
Yeah, can you just give us a second to copy that down?
okay, I'll just sleep.
Okay, take a nap. We'll let you know.
Yeah, so all the stuff are actually going to be the same. You can just copy and paste to save some time in typing. So everything here is very similar. But everyone understands the concept, right, of these different layouts. Okay. Okay, sorry, let me just put this one on the other side. Oh. All right. So the table layout. Okay, let me just since we haven't talked about the table layout, we're just gonna do a simple grid layout, right? Grid. So in this case, I'm doing again the same thing. So I'm gonna have let's say div id equals to column 1, right, to column 3, right? Okay, so this is an example of a grid layout. And here I'm going to do the same thing. So let me just put an HR between these divs so that you understand are they getting broken apart. HR means horizontal rule. So you have call 1, call 2, and call 3. So hashtag grid, hashtag call 1. We're going to define the grids now. So basically we're going to fill in every single style rules to match our actual grid. Okay, so first I wanted to and then we also need to define our container. So our container is the hashtag grid, which is going to be a display of grid. And inside here, we also need to define the grid, I think it's template, is it? Rows. So the rows are obviously going to be just one row. Yeah, so we only have one row. And then, actually, you know what? Let's do auto. No, let's. I think we're doing 200 pixels. I'm not sure if that's gonna work, but let's see if this works. So we're defining as 200 pixels. Then grid template columns. We're defining the number of columns, right? We have 3 columns. The first one is gonna be 40%, 60%, and 40%, right? And this one, we're going to define a different color for each of them. Red. This is going to be green and blue, right? RGB. And today's exercise are more abstract. We're going to just use like different colors to see how everything fits in. I think that's the easier way to understand. That's probably the better way to understand the design. Otherwise you have to also think about the layouts. Okay, so for this part, we need to define where the grid locates. So this one will be specifying grid 1 and then the same row 1. Actually, I don't think we need it, but I'm just gonna write it like this. So this is gonna be row 2, column 2, and column 3. And let's see if this works before I let you copy. Before I wait for you. Okay, let's see. Let's refresh this page. Hopefully it works. Okay, this one does not work. For some reason it's not working. I'm missing something. Why is this not working? Okay, so one way for me to understand why is this not working is to look at the grids. So the other way, I think let's do it at FR. It's probably better with the FR, 4FR, 6FR, and 4FR. See if this works better. Okay, so 4FR, the first one is not coloring correctly. So first one is not coloring correctly. Did I mess up my colors? Oh, here, semicolon. There we go. That's why. Okay, so this is actually what it looks like. This is the grid, the last part. Okay, so let me explain again. So I define this container, this grid element as a grid container. So I set the display to be the grid. Then I define it has only one row, which has a height of 200 pixels. I also define several columns. Now, if you look at the previous cases, we have 20%, 20%. Oh, actually, it's 20%, 20%. Okay, so if you look at the previous cases, right, we have 20%, 20%, and 60%. So I define the FRs. FRs are the fractions. So it means that this one has a fraction of 2, this has a fraction of 6, and this has a fraction of 2, which means that the middle one is going to be 3 times longer than the first and the second one. That's what FR means. Now, for each cell within the grid container, you have to tell them where to place the cell. Column 1 will be placed in column 1 and row 1. Column 2, on the other hand, will be placed on column 2 will be placed on column 2 and column 1, and column 3 will be placed in column 3 and column 1. So that's RGB. So that's basically what we have here for the grid layout. We do not talk about the tables, and the tables are normally used in the old days when the CSS has not been around, but we'll be talking about tables like much later. And the question is, so is it better to use blocks as opposed to inline elements for, I guess, layouts? Yes, because as you can see, like what I showed you before, right? If this width gets very small, right, this is actually going to be wrapped around, and all this stuff are actually getting messed up. Whereas the block element is going to be a little bit like they're going to force it to be on the same line, but even though this is not getting wrapped around. So I would use the block elements more. Inline elements for designs. Well, that's where well, for designs, I never use inline elements, but I suppose you can. But because you know, the designs are based on what you think will work. However, the technology or the technique that we'll be talking about today, Flexbox, you'll see that it has a lot more advantage than just inline element or floated block elements or even tables. It has a lot of capability, especially when you want your designs to work across like different devices. Responsiveness, like it may, like for example, like you may want your menu to appear like in one column instead of three columns. I know like floats can do that, but sometimes you may want to like put like let's say on in a mobile device you may want to put like your menu on top, and then also the bottom menu on the second line, and then the third and then or even like or the other thing is that if you put a lot of spans, right, the advertisement, you can have the first one to have ads, and the second line can have more ads, then you show the content, right? Because we basically want to make a lot of money, right? We want people to pay our ads. So and then on the desktop version, you can have the first column to be ads, then you have the content on the second column, then we have the ads on the third column. When you use Flexbox, you can actually alter the order from the last column to the beginning of the content. But when you use inline or when you use a float, you won't be able to have this kind of capability. That's why Flexbox is extremely important in terms for web designing. Any other questions here? Is everyone done with this part? Is everyone finished? I don't want to be too fast. I always have a tendency of being going through this too fast. Okay, the last part is actually the positioning. So this is all like reviews. We have done this all stuff before. So let's do absolute positioning. So I'm gonna put another one, div id position, POS. So everything here will have to follow, right? Div id col1, col2, col3, right? So I'm gonna put like a positioning. This is gonna be absolute positioning when you talk about positioning. Pause. I'm gonna do as well the col1, col2, and col3. Okay. So here we need to specify something, but let me show you here. So when you have a position col1, right? So the way that we do it is that we're going to specify the same width and height, right? The width is going to be 20%, height let's say another 200 pixels. Color, background color will be let's do the same thing, red, green. Let's do a different color. Cyan. Background color, magenta. Let's do black or gray. I think gray sounds good. Background color, gray. Okay, so I've just arbitrarily assigned different colors. And this one has to be 60%. Okay, so I just arbitrarily assign different colors, right? So if you look at the screen, everything is going to be on separate lines. But let's change everything to absolute position. So we're going to change this to an absolute position, changing the this to an absolute positioning, and change this to an absolute position. Now, when you change it to absolute position, everything will be showing on the top of the screen. Or yeah, hold on. Let me add an HR here as well. HR. Okay. Let's put refresh. Okay, so gray. We're missing something here. Why are we missing things here? Maybe I have a typo. Absolute. Yeah, so where's my, so I have a magenta, I have gray, where's my cyan? 1, 2, and 3. Okay, I have to find out where's my, all my elements. Oh, I know why. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so if you look at it, everything is actually lying on the same at the same place. Everything is going to be lined up directly here. So everything is going to be placed on top of each other. So you have column 1 overlapping column 2 overlapping column 3. Now we're going to force it so that column 1 is going to occur in the beginning of the row by specifying the coordinate system. So we are going to use the left coordinate system. So let's say we're taking the 0 pixels. Actually, you know what? Let's do 0%. It's probably better to use percentages now. And then this will have to be in the next position, which is going to be 20%, just like where my width ends. And this will have to be the left position will have to be the 20 plus 60. Yeah, 60%, 20 plus 40%. No, 20 plus 60, which is 80%, right? So this will have to be on 80%, right? So now you can see the cyan will come first. The reason that we see like magenta and gray is because they all overlap each other. Like the gray overlap on top of the cyan, gray overlap on top of the magenta, and magenta is actually the bigger rectangle. But now you can see that absolute positioning allows you to move stuff around. One of the suggestions in the parent element is that you might want to consider using abs position relative as well. Yeah, you might want to use relative on the parent element because by default it uses the static element, and that will actually that may actually mess up in some of the browsers. But adding that statement there is not going to affect much. What else? So that's absolute positioning. And you can also, let's say if I change this to, let's say 25%, right? You can see that we're actually adding some gap here because now this is actually positioned in the quarter width. You can see that the more I scroll, the thicker the gap becomes. Let's undo it, 20%. So any questions? What? Okay. So far we have seen like a few different statements. We have the block layout, the inline layout, which looks weird with the screen. So let me just uncheck this one. And then we have the grid layout, and then we have the absolute position layout. So we have 4 different layouts given here on the same page. 4 different techniques for laying out your technique. So right now it's mine. Do you want me to mute it? Okay. Yeah, I know. Someone else. Yeah, so Ricky. Yeah, I guess I can mute. Yeah, I can force mute everyone. I'm the host. Okay. So let's go back to our documentation. This is actually a quick review of everything we have done so far. And of course, we have actually an assignment due today. Unfortunately, the video I created, and actually I show you the solution to this homework assignment, and I want you to like understand and appreciate the actual design and how you can like bring your understanding of your of different codes to a different level. So assignments we have here. So this is going to be the last assignment. So basically, the one I ask is that I want everyone to create a scroll. And last week I've uploaded a video, and in fact I just posted. I just embedded the video here. It's the same video as in the announcement, so you can actually watch it to see how I did my scrolls. Yeah, you can actually watch it and see how like different like how do I simulate these dotted lines without adding any dotted lines in HTML. So these dotted lines are created using gradients. As you can see, there are a lot of gradients done here. No images. I'm guessing the March 17th. Yes. So this is actually supposed to be due last week, but I think I announced it saying that I want everyone to try to submit or try to do this on your own at home by this week or by today. Did I say anything here? Let me see. I have to read through all the stuff. Meanwhile, everyone's concerned that delay 40. So I did it 45 minutes and I understand the process 12 hours. Okay, so this one I actually said 12 hours. Okay, so I'll probably fix it to 12 hours. Maybe that will help help him with some of the situation. So I'm not gonna like change any of my words. Sometimes I forget what I said earlier, but since I posted, I'll give you 12 hours to complete test 2. Yeah, so homework 7, I wanted you to like kind of like repeat what I like try to follow through my video tutorial and see how that works. Well, today. Let's see. Okay, let's do it this way. Test 2. It's on the syllabus. Yeah. We're just delaying this. Yeah. So test 2 is on the syllabus. You can find it on the syllabus. Assignment 7. Try to do it. Try to finish assignment 7 by the end of this week. I'll just give you some time to finish assignment 7. Just go over how I did it and understand the process. Don't just copy the codes, but try to understand the process and see how you can fit in from the gradients into your designs. So try to do it by the end of this week. Let me see. So end of this week, 28th. So 28th. Okay, so March 28th. We just try to finish this by the end of this week. If you haven't done so. Okay. So let's go back to our page. Keep getting lost information. Web. What time is it? It's 5:10. Okay, classes, assignments, classes, resources, Flexbox tutorial. Okay, man. This one is actually has 73 pages, but I think we can finish this today. Mostly are just pictures. So we talk about block, inline, grid, and positioned. So what is a flexbox? Flexbox basically allows you to position your elements the way you want it based on your specification and the order of your web page. And it's very flexible. And I urge you, I want everyone to learn about this or become really good with it. Okay, so when you look at the Flexbox, so let's look at a PowerPoint slide because there's a picture I want to show everyone. No. This week's assignment is going to be simpler. Basically, what I want is that I'll be giving you like boxes and shapes, what we are going to do in the class, and let you explore about Flexbox, and that will be your assignment for this week, so that you understand how Flexbox works. In fact, we can probably like modify some of the old assignments or even quizzes using Flexbox instead of like floats. So if you have done the old assignments, all you have to do is modify the CSS to using Flexbox instead of floats or grids or whatever. And they're actually possible using Flexbox. Okay, so when you look at Flexbox, we have something called a horizontal placement, right? Horizontal Flexbox. Then then it goes in this direction, so that will be the main axis. Then the more items you added, that will be called the cross axis. Then if you define a vertical Flexbox, you go in this direction, and then all the ones will be like there's also called a cross axis. It's the opposite of our main axis. So a few things that you have to define. So remember that we always talk about containers, element containers. So an example that you should know about element containers are the unordered list or ordered list. And within the container, you have list items, several list items, and those list items are the items. Likewise, for flexible box or Flexbox, you have to define a container, which you define the display flex, just like the grid, just like how you define a grid. So if you look at the grid, right, we define this as our container, the grid container, and inside the grid you have the cell. The cell is a grid item, just like, so everything should be consistent. You're not actually learning different formats. You are trying to apply the same format into a different scenario, different technique implementing the solution. So in this case, we can define either a flex or inline flex. So inline flex has a capability that allows you to combine both the inline, which means that all the stuff goes on the same line. All the elements go on the same line or on separate lines. So that will be the flexible. So this combines the inline display as well as a flex display. And we're not going to worry about any of this because we're going to assume that your browser is going to support flex. So we're not going to worry about like different browsers because that's a pain. Okay, so we have setting the flexible the flexbox flow. So we have by default flexbox items. Okay, so let me just go back to our tutorial here. So you can actually go over this one, and in fact, I'm not going to show you the this because you can see it on your own. But and I'm going to follow the examples given in this tutorial. Okay, so now let's go back to our screen, and I'll be closing everything here. And we're gonna start with a basic flexbox. So I'm gonna call like flex 1, flex 2, flex 3, and so forth. So add new item, flex 1 .html, add another one, CSS. It's always better for me to put external CSS because this way I can put like CSS and flex on the same window by splitting them separately. Okay, let's put the flex 1 CSS here. Okay, so we're going to add some codes, but first we are going to define our flexbox codes. The first thing is that we're going to define our div class. We're defining everything as our div class, right? Div class equals to container. So we're going to use the word container, which defines our container. And we are going to define 6 different elements. So you can just simply copy and paste. This will save you some time. So each one is going to have class 1, class 2, class equals to box 1, box 2, box 3, box 4, box 5, and box 6. 6 different elements. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Now we need to define our different colors, right? So I'm going to use the similar color as the one in the tutorial. Or you can use a different color if you wanted. So let's say we're defining the green, and we also need we also want the same size, right? So I'm going to make sure that they're going to have the same size and same stuff. So I'm going to have let's say I define the container here, right? And then inside the container, I'm defining all the elements are going to receive the same size. So width is going to be let's say 100 pixels, and height is going to be 100 pixels. So that this means that all the children within the container are going to receive the same dimensions, 100 pixels by 100 pixels. Now box 2, on the other hand, will be background color blue. Box 3 will be background color red. Box 4 will be having a background color of magenta. You can use a different color. Box 5 will be having a background color of yellow. And then the last one, they use pink, right? Box 6, yellow, blue, green, red, yellow, magenta. Let's use cyan. Okay, so I'm using cyan. Okay, so now if you look at the colors, everything should be on separate lines. If you check this one out, let me just let me just play this one, and it's gonna say my flex1.html, opening up flex1.html into my new browser. Okay, so everything is on separate lines, but let me just make this on the same line. Okay, so here I need to define my container, right? Dot container. I need to define my flexbox container. So flexbox display flex. You know what? Let me just do it this way. Actually, it's fine. I'll just do the flex. You know what? I wanted to like reuse all of the stuff into separate files. So I'll be creating another file called flex1.css, and I'll rename the flex1 to flex.css, so that so I don't have to keep on repeating these styles over and over again. And this one, adding a new item called flex1.css. Okay, so now everything here should be set, and I want to copy my flex.css in the beginning of the link. So flex.css simply have all the colors defined and as well as the size defined. Flex1 is actually where our flexbox is going to occur. So I would define the container to have this to have a display of flex. And then once you finish that part, right, simply define the container to have a display of flex. When you run it, you should be able to see the flexbox, like all the elements putting on the same line. You should be able to see something like this. And you can see that the width is actually no longer like 100 pixels, because when I resize this, it will make it smaller. If I make it longer, it will make it bigger. So if I 100%, okay, so let me just make it 100%. So if I make this smaller, right, it's going to be a little bit smaller. It's going to try to fit across the screen. And if I make it bigger, it's not going to expand over the 100%. So all I did is to add the statement. Any questions? Is everyone following or no? Okay. So when you type in like this is, let's say if I type this is my flexbox, right? You will see that the text is actually on separate lines. The reason is that we're defining it as a flex element, which is also considered as a block element. If you make this into an inline flex, this is my flexbox will occur on the same line as our container. let's additionally, let's also add a border around our container. So we're going to add a simple border. Let's say 3 pixels, solid black, right? Maybe we do ridge, right? Solid ridge, whatever. Okay. So you can see that. This is my flex box is actually covering here, right? That's my inline flex. Okay. Now, if you change this from inline flex to a flex, right? The width is actually going to be changed, right? So notice like the flex actually goes across the whole screen, right? You see all the white colors here, right? You can also see that the colors are actually pushed all the way in the beginning. If you resize it, it's going to be it shows like nothing here, like it's not being resized. So that's flex. Inline flex, basically you're not allowed, like you cannot like change the size that easily. Okay, one suggestion here, we can also add some numbers here, right? So let's add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so all I'm doing here is to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and I would like to style each cell to have my to look a little bit better. So I'm going to center every one of them. Actually, let's not center it. So they suggested adding some padding and changing the font size. So I'm going to just add change the font size to let's change the font size to 36 pixels, and then maybe add some padding 16 pixels or 18 pixels. Right. So once I add some padding, you can see that this is what it looks like. It's get a little bit bigger because padding is not part of the width and height. So this gets slightly bigger. But right now we're just trying to learn how the Flexbox works. Is everyone following? Okay, cool. Okay. So now we talk about like Flexbox. When you put a container, everything will be lined up here. So now we can also look at why is it lined up on this direction? Why is it lined up? Why is it lined up here? Why are we going in this direction? The reason is that we specify by default. We can let's actually put the style here because I want to leave out like all the styles in our style sheet. So I'm just going to put the border in the flex.css. So now this is going to contain only the display flex, right? Okay, so now we're going to see that we're seeing that all the items here are being pushed horizontally. The reason is that the direction is by default in the row direction. So we have by default it's the row direction. So this is the default direction. So the direction is actually going forward in the cross direction. So it's a little bit confusing. Initially I thought it's going to be column, because column makes more sense. But the flex direction, what it means is that you're actually it's actually pushing in the lower direction. It's actually going in and down. So when you do like a flex direction roll, it's actually going to put these elements next to each other, but you're moving in the roll direction, not in the column direction. So if you change this to a column direction, this becomes the column. This becomes actually in the vertically, because now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is now lined up vertically. So it's now lined up in the row, but it's actually we're actually populating across in the column direction. This is actually a little bit confusing, but if you think about it, that's how the flex direction works. So the default is the row, which means that all the elements will be lined up directly next to each other. Okay. Okay, let's look at other stuff. We have the row reversed, right? So this one will populate in the reverse direction. So now you should be able to see in the opposite direction, reverse direction. So you should see 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And also notice like it starts the white region is actually getting aligned in the beginning, because everything will be pushed from on the right hand side. And the column reverse does the same thing, right? So there's a column reverse as well. So you should see in the vertical direction 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So that's row reverse. Okay. The other thing is that so we have a direction, right? Okay. Let me see. Okay, this looks like a lot of repeated stuff here. Okay, here's an interesting one. We have something called a flex wrap. What this one does is that, remember that if I leave everything alone, right? If I leave everything alone, and then let's say if I want to resize this, notice like this each element is getting smaller and smaller and smaller if the width does not is too narrow, because the expected width should be around maybe 7 or 800 pixels. But let's say if I make my width less than 700 pixels, then each cell or each element will have a smaller width. Now to solve that problem, we can always wrap the element to the next line. So that's where the wrapping comes in, and that's where the direction, what the direction means. This wrap, when it goes in the row direction, the elements are getting wrapped in the row direction. So each element is getting wrapped in the row direction. So wrap, where we have a few options. The default is the no wrap, but if you specify the wrap, right, you can see that initially it's not getting wrapped because I have 100 pixels, but as I reduce the size, the 6 will be wrapped first, 5 will be wrapped, then 4 will be wrapped. This wrapping mechanism is actually quite useful in a mobile device where you don't have enough workspace to display your wide content. So you may want to like So we'll have to wrap the content on separate line. Can everyone hear me? I don't know, it just turned off. Okay. Yeah, I don't know, for some reason my headset just turned off. Okay. Now, we can also look at what happened to a column. Of course, in this case, we cannot really see how it works in the column direction because we have to figure out how do we make this appear. So let me just see, because right now if you actually reduce the size, right, this is still going to appear like with a scroll bar here. So the div is actually going to it's not going to allow you to wrap it in the column in the in the different column. Let's see. So there's a technique that we're going to use is that we're going to force the div to have the height of our window. So we are going to force our container to have a height of our window. So height 100 VH, right? This is the viewport height. We'll talk about viewport in the next class. That's from chapter 5.1. So this just means that we're making the height to be as high as the viewport height. And when you see this, VH is the viewport height, VW is the viewport width, which means one is the width and one is the height. So the question is, what's the difference between VH and VW? So VH stands for viewport height, the other one is the width. Okay, so you can see that vertically it's actually getting wrapped as when I put the flex direction to be the column. If you make it, let's stick to the row first. You can also reverse a wrap. So let's see what happens if you reverse the wrap. So initially, when everything is fine, right? This is actually going to start from the end, but everything seems to be okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But when you need more space, right? It's going to wrap from the end of the content. So now you can see that 1, 2, 3 actually goes on the bottom, whereas 4, 5, 6 goes on top. If you use a normal wrap, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6. So that's the difference between wrap, reverse, and the wrap. So there are so many things you can do with a flex box. Okay, so there's another feature of Flexbox is to have it to specify where you want to place these content. Yeah, so basically you want to specify where you want to place these content. Okay, let's actually leave the wrap alone. So we're going to use something called a justify content. This will tell the Flexbox all the items, all the content within the container that we want to where do we want to place these items from. Initially, I believe it's a flex start. I believe that's where that's the initial value, the default value. So when you do a flex start, everything will be placed in the beginning of our flex box, right? When you do a flex end, on the other hand, everything will start at the end of the flex box. Right, end meaning we're aligning on the column when the direction is roll. When you do a direction in the column direction, when the flex container is defined to be in the column direction, it will start on the bottom of the page. And then there's also like a few other features. So we have justify content, and then we have center. And then we also have we can also do quite a few things around the space around, space between, space evenly. We can look at it. So space around just means that you're putting some uniform space around each element. So now you have some uniform space. So this space appears to be a little bit wider than the first space. The reason is that this space actually contains of two spaces between 1 and 2, and that's why it appears a little bit wider than 1. Okay, then let's look at space between, which will distribute all the spaces uniformly across all the elements, but it starts from the beginning and the end. So it's very similar to space around, except that this is going to distribute this will place the first and last element at the end of the container and distributing even space. I think it's even spaces. Yeah, it should be even amount of spaces between every single element. Then we have space evenly. This will basically have the even spaces around all the elements, whereas the space around actually has like the first space is a little bit more narrow than the rest of them. So these are the features you can use, the justify content, which specify the space around which specify how you want to justify your content across. Not on the main axis. So now we're looking at the cross axis. So these two properties refer to the cross axis. If you look at a PowerPoint slide, I think at the picture, we refer to a picture here. So if you look at this picture, right, this is the horizontal flex box, which defines to be the display colon flex, and the flex direction to be colon row. And this will be the column. This will be the vertical flex box, is the flex direction of column. This is the row direction. And for those two properties, we're referring to the cross axis, not the main axis. These two justify content and the flex wrap. So there are other features you can try out with the justify content. I'm gonna skip all the stuff. It's already 6. So let's see if I can finish this in maybe half an hour, or maybe a little bit more than half an hour. Okay, so justify content refers to the cross axis. There's something called align items. And then there's something called align content. I think there's align content and align items. Yeah. So the one with the align are going to be on the so align items is also referring to the cross axis. But what this one means is that we're aligning like so let's actually change some sizes. So in order to show you, I have to change the height of each element, right? So I'm going to change the height of, let's say, element 3. Let's say I want to change it to 50 pixels. And also element 5 to be, let's say, 150 pixels, just to make it slightly bigger. So now let's look at the align items, right? So a few things we can, so let's actually look without doing the align items and see how that works. So you can see that 3, 4, 5 all have different sizes. And now if we specify, if we want everything to be in the middle alignment, we do align items, right? This is on the cross axis, making sure that this is going to align it to wherever you want. Let's say we do center. I think it's center. So now if you do a center alignment, everything will be aligned in the center direction. So notice like 1, 2, 3. 3 is smaller, 5 is bigger, so everything will be middle aligned. So this is another example of a vertical alignment. If you specify the flex direction to be the row, that's an example of a vertical alignment. And you can also do stretching, right? Stretching doesn't work. Does it even exist, stretch? Yeah, so stretch, I guess that does not work. The default is actually the baseline. No, that's not a base. Well, the baseline will basically be that you're aligning on the bottom of our item. No, actually, baseline will be on the top of the item. And then we have like a flex end as well. It's going to be on the bottom. So this looks like some bar charts. Maybe I can ask you to do a bar chart. Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe I can ask you to do a bar chart using Flexbox. You know, sometimes we have to be creative. Okay, I'm not sure why stretch doesn't work. Stretch basically will allow you to stretch these items vertically. Maybe it's because I have a height, and that's why it does not work. So maybe that did not work. Let's try to make this inherit, and also change this to stretch. Sometimes I'm not sure if it works. Yeah. So now if I get rid of the height, right? So now 3 is actually going to be stretched across the whole screen here. But it's actually it's bigger, slightly bigger than my stuff here. Oh, actually, I don't want the inherit. Let's do auto. Maybe it's auto height. Yeah. So when you do auto height, it's gonna stretch across the entire area here. Otherwise, it's not going to do anything. Yeah, auto is nice. And then if you do what is it? If you want to do let's say center again, let's see how that works. Box 3, will that show? So box 3 will show you like this way. This is auto height, which means that it's going to be the same height as your character, as well as a few padding here. So that's what align item stretch means. Let's actually look at justify content stretch, right? There's also stretch here. I forgot about this one. This is actually, oh, yeah, this is actually interesting. Now the stretch actually does not work because each one I have already specified my width and height. So, but if you actually specify the height for let's say box 1, the width of box 1 to be auto, right? then this should stretch. No, it does not stretch. Yeah, I'm not sure. But I guess you can play around with it. I don't know if they have stretch. Yeah, they have stretch. Anyway, I'm not too sure. So, okay. Okay, so align items. So all these three properties apply to cross axis. Align items actually changes vertically, like on the main axis, but it aligns on the cross axis. Justify content moves stuff around the cross axis. Flex wraps on the cross axis. Then there are a couple of main axes. The one that's for the main axis. I think one of them is align content. Okay, so align content. That's number 7. So align content is actually on the main axis. So now if you look at align content, right? This is an example of a main axis. This is going to be the main axis. So how does that work? The main axis is actually on this direction, going downwards, because our flex direction is defined by the row, and therefore it uses the row direction as our main axis. Cross axis will be in the column direction. So if you put align content in this case, right? In this case, how does that work? By default, it uses the flex. So let's try to do with center as well. And in order to see this one, since we have wrapping, let's look at the wrapping. How does that work? Does that even work? Sometimes I have to look at how this works. Okay, notice like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are actually on the center, are now centered, right? If I reduce the size, they're always going to stay at the center. That's because the align content is moved at the center. So align content is the center. Okay, the other thing is that if we make this space between, they're going to be in the beginning and at the end, right? And if you make this even smaller, right, which I don't think I can at this point of time, maybe I should do it developer tools. So notice like this is what how it looks like with two columns, right? So everything like here we have some spaces, here we have some spaces, here we have some spaces, and some spaces here. So that's align content. This one applies to the main axis. So all these three apply to the cross axis. There are still a lot of stuff. These values are actually the same in everywhere. We have space between, space evenly, space around, center, flex stars, flex end, start and stretch, and so forth. These values are always going to be the same for these 3 different properties, 3 different attributes. Is everyone following here? Hello? Okay, so now we finish up with a container, okay? I just want to make sure that you understand that everything here applies to a container. none of them apply to the item. I've noticed like students in the past have tried to apply them to the items, and then they complain that why it's not working. They're just looking at their codes over and over again and not knowing why things are not working as they should have. So all these stuff should be applied to the container, which is going to be this container that you define the display flex. So this everything here are the container, not the items. There are actually a few items attributes that you can look at. Let me look up which ones. One of them is going to be the align self. But let me see, I'm trying to follow the same format. Where is it? It's still align items. Okay, so is this align items? Flexbox flexibility. Okay, I'll look into that one. So this is yeah, chapter 9. I can look at that one. Then let's move on to number 10. Okay, align self. Did I miss anything? I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything here. This is such a long document. Align content. Okay, align content, then flexibility. Okay, so we basically cover. Oh no. Okay. I forgot one more thing. There's one thing that's called flex order. Flex order actually applies. So what flex order means is that we're going to tell that which order you want the element to appear. So this is actually useful in responsive design, in which sometimes you may want to order, let's say, element number 3 in the beginning, and let's say element 1 at the end. But normally the way that you would do it is to move the stuff around. But remember that the HTML file is served mostly for the presentation or for the content. So we shouldn't be changing the HTML file that much. Whereas what you wanted is that you may want some elements to appear in the beginning of the text. For example, one of the example could be like some banner that you have in the third and on the what's that called, the right hand side. You may want the banner on the right hand side to appear on the top of the of your elements in the mobile design, in the let's say on the phone or on the tablet, right? And then you may want some stuff to appear like differently, and that's where the ordering comes in. So now ordering can only apply, it actually makes a lot more sense. It shouldn't be applied to the container because you're not ordering the container. The container just simply contains a bunch of flex items. Instead, the order applies to the item, to each item. I believe the flex order, we start, everything is going to have a specific value, arbitrary value. So we can set, let's say if we set box 1 and we define the order, right, to be, let's say 1, right? Wait. Actually, no, sorry, not flex order. It's just simply called order. So that by default it's -1. So if you define box 1 to be 1, it's going to be bigger than -1, which means that box 1, the 1 should go at the end. I believe it should go at the end. Hopefully that works. Yeah, so 1 goes at the end. By default, it uses -1. Now, if we want the box 6 to go in the beginning, we simply specify some number that's smaller than -1. Let's say -2. So the default is -1, right? So now 6 goes in the beginning and 1 goes at the end, without even changing our content in our HTML file. Of course, you can enforce the order for each element. That's also possible. You can write box 1 to be 6, box 2 to be 2, 3, 4, 5, and then box 6 to be, let's say, 1. You can just write like that, but by default the order is set to -1. So if you want something like box 6 to appear before everything else, just make sure you put it before, just make sure you have the order less than -2. Right, so let's say if I make this box 5 to be -2, right? Now if you specify box 6 to be -1, let's say if I do -10 here, right? You can write any arbitrary number. If you make box 6 to be to have a more order of -5, it's simply going to have box 5 to appear before box 6. But if you make this boxes to be smaller than box 5, like -50, you will have that box 6 will appear before the 5. So that's what order is. Remember, order only applies to each flexible item. Is that understandable? Okay. Let me see. For this case, we're going to we're gonna actually modify our container, right? And then in this case, we're not gonna have the width defined, because I need to show you something that, yeah, we're gonna see something. And then for the align items, I'm gonna use the flex start. Okay, so I'm basically just modifying some stuff here. And then let me just comment out some of the codes here, because actually, you know what? Let me just create a new file. It's probably easier. Yeah. Otherwise, there's too much stuff here. So I'll just create a new file. So add new item. Okay, and then flex2.html. Okay, it's already 6:05. Okay, and then I'll just put the flex here. Yeah, why not? I'll just leave the flex here and the flex 1 here. Okay, so flex 1, flex has some styles that I defined. It has box 1, box 2, and box 3. Now the thing is that I need to, actually not this one. I need to also modify my style for my flex box. So I'll have to add a new style sheet here. So add new item flex2.css. Here we have flex2, double click to open, and then move this on the separate page. Okay, and then the body, we'll have to figure out where do we put this one. So flex2. Okay, now let's write our div id container, and then div id, we're doing the same thing, box 1, box 2, and box 3. So I actually do IDs. You can use class as well. 2 and 3, we're just creating 3 boxes. Okay, and then the container, we're going to define the same thing, border 3 pixels. Actually, we already have defined that part, so we don't need that one. The box, so we're going to define one more thing, container, star. This is going to be the children elements. We're defining the auto width. Okay, and then for the container, we're going to specify the display flex. Okay, let's see how that works. Okay, nothing is here. Oh shoot, you know what? Let's change everything to class because my old style is class. So I'll just change everything to class. Sorry about that. Okay, and then let's write 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. So now refresh this page. We actually get this part 1, 2, and 3. So this is actually all the dot. Sorry, so it has to be dot. Not not hashtag because I'm styling the class, not the IDs. Okay, so now this is what it looks like right now. Okay, so we have 3 properties, 3 attributes. This right now, all the attributes here are going to be all these flexible attributes are going to apply to your items, flex items. They're not going to be in the container because we're specifying these flexible items to your to each of the item here. So what you're going to do for each box, you are going to define your let me just see which one. There are 3 properties. One is called a flex scroll, flex shrink, and flex basis. Okay. So let's actually define box 1 and box 2 and box 3. Okay, so we have 3 of them. So we have actually 3 properties: flux, flex, shrink, flex. So this one actually has 3 arguments: 0, 1, and auto. I believe auto is the basis, 0 is the ratio being shrunk, and this is the ratio growing ratio 1. So by default, it has a grow of 1, flex shrink of 0, and flex is that correct? No, that doesn't look right. Shrink is going to be 1. Grow is actually 0, it doesn't grow. And let's say we do a basis, right? Basis is by default the auto. So these values are actually the default values. If you don't specify any of them, they're going to be the default values. So you can see that it did not change anything here. Let's look at the developer tools. Okay, and then so what's flex basis? So flex basis is the basis size of your flexible box. So the way that we define it is that it's going to be the width. When you define the direction of a row, it's going to be the width. If you define the flex direction to be the column, it's going to be the height. So by default, the flex direction is set to row. By default, the flex or the justify content will also be flex start. And then also we have what is it? The flex wrap is going to be no wrap, and so forth. So these are the default values. Right now we're not seeing anything different, but we can also play around with the basis, right? The basis, we're gonna say let's do like the same thing we did before: 20%, 60%, and 20%, right? Actually, you know what? Let's do 33. Yeah, let's do 30%, 30%. I don't think this actually matters. Auto. Let me just actually, you know what? Let me just look at a better example. Like right now, I can't come up with a better example. So they use actual word. Maybe actual word is actually better. 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Okay, and then the book talks using 200 pixels. So let's define the basis of 200 pixels. 200 pixels and 200 pixels. Okay, so you can see that if you actually resize this window, I'm going to use the developer tools to get a more narrower window. So you can see that it's actually growing. Yeah, so you can see that like right now it's not growing anything, but when you try to shrink it down, each of the element is actually shrinking. But when you try to stretch it beyond this point, the element basis, it will have 200 pixels. The reason it doesn't grow as much as possible is because our flex grow is set to 0. That's the default value. If you delete any of this value, it's going to be the same. So let me just delete it for you, and just to prove it to you that that's the default value. So you can see that it's going to look exactly the same as what we had before, right? So that shows you that this is actually the default value. Now, if you change, let's say if I change the grow of the second box to be 1, right? This means that when I try to resize this window, increase the width, the 2 will actually receive a much bigger size. You can see that. Yeah, you can see that 2 is receiving a much more size than the rest of them, because 2 is being grown. Likewise, if you also increase this to be 1, right? This the third box is also going to receive the same amount of size when you try to resize this image, this width. Now, so you may ask me, what is the significant meaning of these numbers? They actually have a meaning. It means that if you specify 1 here and a 1 here, this means that box 2 and box 3 are going to grow at the same rate. But if you specify, let's say if you change this to a 2, right? It means that box 1 is not going to grow. Box 2 will grow at the rate of 1. Box 3 is going to grow twice as fast as 2. So in other words, you will see like a much more growth in box 3. So let's resize it. So here, this is actually not a good size. So here we can see that everything is the same size, but when we increase the size, right, you can see that box 3 is actually a little bit wider than box 2. The reason is that it's growing faster than box 2. And of course the rate depends on these numbers. If you make this, let's say a much bigger number, right, you'll see a much bigger growth here on box 3. So you can see that 2 is a little bit narrower. It's still wider than 1, but 3 is a lot wider than 2. So that's what the flex growth means. And you don't have to like recalculate the flex growth. You do not have to calculate it, but when you design the website, just change these values to make sure that it satisfies your need. Is everyone understanding the flexibility here? Yes. Well, I guess the people who understand will say yes. The people who don't understand will not say anything. I'm seeing less yes now. Huh. Yeah, they will, but I'm not receiving any private messages here. Okay, and then shrink, you can also do the same thing, right? If you change this to a 0, right, this will not shrink at all. But whereas box 1 and box 3 will shrink. If you change, let's say if you do 0, and then this will be shrinking like twice as fast. Okay, so if you reduce the size, right, you can see that box 2 is actually not shrinking. Box 3, on the other hand, is shrinking a little bit faster than box 1. It's kind of hard to tell, but I think it is a little bit shorter. But you can also check the developer tools to see the actual sizes of how much it shrunk. So again, flexibility applies to the elements. So let's say this is 25 and 200 pixels. We can also shorthand it as flex colon, and the first one, I believe it's going to be the growth. So the first number is going to be a growth. So what we have here is that we have a 5 growth of 5, and then 2 and 200 pixels. So let's see if this works. So when you refresh it, it should be the same. Yeah, nothing has changed now because this is a shorthand, just like the font property. As you remember, font, grids, and a bunch of properties you can, or background, you can shorthand these statements into a single line. Okay. Now, we also have something called the align self. So let me remind you on the align item. Yeah, this one applies to align, is similar to align items. No, align content, sorry. Yeah, this one applies to, similar to align content, not align items. I keep on getting confused by these terms. Okay, so flex. So remember about align content, right? Align content basically allows you to align all the content within your container. So inside the container, you have a lot of flex items. Like you have 6 different flex items. Okay, I think it's saving battery since no one's talking. Okay, box 1, you have so these are different items, and we have a container here. Okay, and then so that's what the flex container does. It basically allows you to align all the content, all the items within the flex box. But if you let's actually let me think. So how do I do this? Flex 2, the HTML flex 1. Well, let me just modify the same file. I don't feel like writing another CSS. Okay, so let's look at how this one appears. So 6, 5, 2, 3, and 4, right? Okay. So we're going to like I'm just going to modify the flex1.css so that so we can get exactly what we wanted. So let's say we're doing the 1, right? 1, so where's 1? 1 is actually at the end because of my order. So I'll be pushing the 1 to the end of the box, just 1. So the way that you do it is to use this align self, and align self only applies to the flex item, not the container. So I'll be changing the alignment of the box 1. So in this case, I want to say I'm going to push it all the way at the bottom of this screen. So align item aligns it to the main axis, not the cross axis, because it's similar to align content. Align content is basically align self for all the items, for all the flex items. One is not aligned. I do it right? I'm pretty sure that's correct. Okay, I see. I see what's going on. Let me think. Align items, yeah. So let's actually get rid of the. I think it's because of this statement. So let me just see if I get rid of this statement. Align content. Okay, yeah, it's because of the align content that actually prevents it from pushing this down. Yeah, so it's because of my align content is actually preventing the one from getting pushed down. Okay, so all I did is to remove the align content because they're actually conflicting each other. So box 1 is now actually pushing down, and I can say that I want box 6 to be pushing up, right? So I can say that self flex start. So this will allow me to push the box 6 to the beginning. And I can also say box 3, right? Let's try to stretch that one, see if that works. So align self. Align self applies to a flex item. So this should stretch box 3. The reason that it's able to stretch box 3 is because of the height is set to auto, whereas the other ones have a fixed size height. And if you change this to if you change the flex box to have a direction of column, Um, this will align it to the column, like horizontally, not vertically. But right now I'm setting the justify the direction to row. That's why everything is aligned in the row direction. Okay, any questions? Come on, you have to say something. Hello?
Here.
Yes? Any questions? We this is actually concluding the flex box. This is actually all the stuff that's available on the flex box. So the flex box we did is to make a container with a display of flex. Its direction is a row, right, or column. Then we have a flex wrap that's either wrap or no wrap or etc. Then we have three different arguments. We have to justify flags it. I don't know, like I don't know why is the flagging it last time. I think this one is okay because if you can see, everyone is able to see on the YouTube, right? If you're able to see on the YouTube, so I think it might be okay. For some reason, I think I checked it for child, and maybe I did say some like something like the S word, and then they call it or something. Like they have a transcription. They did my caption, and then and then they decide to flag it, and then they stop my video. So I don't know. Yeah, so I think I have to figure out how to turn off the child one because I want to make this. They only have like two options. One is child and one is adult. And I know that what if I change it to adult, then I don't know if you need to sign in to verify if you're 18 years old or older. I know they have this option, so I don't know like I don't know which one they mean. So that's why I don't really like the setting. Okay. So I try not to curse. It's really hard. Oh really? Maybe that's why I got flagged because I mentioned that as well. That's interesting. I don't know why. Why would they flag if I mention that word? It's so weird. Uh, yeah. Well, you know more than me. Soon. We can actually dismiss after just a quick review, and I'll post you an update on the homework assignment. Are you listening to me? I know it's long. I prefer like the whole session so that we can keep the video short, and then we dismiss a little bit early. Like right now it's like 6:30. We can just simply just dismiss everyone after a quick review here. So basically, we talk about the flex box, display flex, and then we have the flex direction wrap, and then the justify content. Just justify content align items are both on the justify content and align items are both on the cross axis. Align content is on the main axis. Align items aligns on the cross axis, but it's actually based on the main the well, align items aligns on the main axis, but it's based on the cross axis. And then we have the flexibility where we have flex, where we have like the different orders. We can specify our orders as well as other flexibility like flex string, flex grow, and then also the flex basis for each item. They apply to each item. Then finally, we have the align self that allows us to align an item in the flex box to the main axis. So any questions? And I think you should do all the assignments. Hello?
No, Professor. Professor,
Yeah.
you said next week we'll do a review for the test.
Yeah, we're actually going to go over 5.1 first, which is the viewport, and then I'll give you some exercise or some hints on the test. Like we can go over my expectation for the test. Oh yeah, I did say that. Will our assignment for this week be posted? It will be announced and posted. By tomorrow, I have to like pack up my stuff from my office tonight because I want to get fined for staying out. Any other questions? No? See that we have a few people join, but I only heard a few people talk, so I don't know if they're actually just joining and then just surf the internet or what. But yeah, in the class, usually I guess people uh, you know, are more attentive. Yeah, that's good to know. Okay, thank you very much, and we'll see each other next week as well, same time.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Goodbye. Safe as well.